I wanted to learn more about personal finance. So, of course, I went to business school, so you do learn about finance. But what I found at the time was that it was more focused on corporate finance, but there wasn't any focus really on personal finance. How do you manage your money, especially as a young professional finishing school? You probably have student loans. You probably are restarting your careers. There were one and two people who had some random information, but it wasn't specific to your specific needs. And I also had taken out a student loan to help pay for my education, and I needed tips on how to pay off student loans quickly and to get rid of them so I can move on with my life and do the other things that I want to do. And there wasn't much information. It was very, very disappointing to see what was out there.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Meta Transitions. I am your host, Trisha K. Williams, and I'm here with Jodi-Ann Smith. Jodi-Ann is a dear friend of mine, and I'm so excited to have her here. Welcome, Jodi, to our show.
Thank you, Trisha. Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm very excited to be here. I over the moon and ready to share and talk to you about what's happening, and also to share any tips that anyone can take back and focus on for their transitions as well. So thank you so much. This is so exciting. You are really doing good work, and keep it up.
Thank you. Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
All right. So, to get started, I'm going to get you, Jodi, to just share a little bit more about who you are and what you do with our audience.
Awesome, awesome. So first thing I would start with is I am Jamaican. So I was born and raised in Jamaica, and came to Canada, I would say 7 years ago, to pursue an MBA at the University of British Columbia. And after finishing my program, I have been working in e-commerce and merchandising in a retail organization. And when I finished school, I wanted to learn more about personal finance. So, of course, I went to business school, so you do learn about finance. But what I found at the time was that it was more focused on corporate finance, how to do net present values and determining if projects are going to be profitable or not. But there wasn't any focus really on personal finance. How do you manage your money, especially as a young professional finishing school? You probably have student loans. You probably are restarting your careers. There wasn't much information around that, and there were one and two people who had some random information, but it wasn't specific to your specific needs. So I found at that point in time, and I also had taken out a student loan to help pay for my education, and I needed tips on how to pay off student loans quickly and to get rid of them so I can move on with my life and do the other things that I want to do. And there wasn't much information. It was very, very disappointing to see what was out there at the time. So at that point, I started to educate myself, first of all, with the knowledge I had from school and also from my previous education and what I did with my own personal finances. I took the time out to read many, many, many books. I also started listening to podcasts, and I found one or two really good podcasts that were very helpful. There's one called Soul Money from Farnoosh Tarabi. Excellent podcast if you're looking for ways to help to build wealth. And I also started reading more books I wanted to read books from Warren Buffett and those people, but it was just too heavy. I needed basic information first. Now I'm reading those books because the knowledge has advanced, but I needed simple information to break down things, and also specific for an immigrant. So the Canadian financial system is quite different from Jamaica. I mean, we have similar banking systems and banking operations, but there were some unique things that if nobody told you, you wouldn't know. In my case, nobody told me, so I didn't know.
Yeah.
But things like RRSPs and TFSAs, what they represent, how you can use them to build wealth, that kind of information was very hard to find. So I started listening to Farnoosh's podcast. So that's where the knowledge really started from. but it was very US specific. And then for the Canadian piece, I would go to the library, and I still do to this day, and look for finance books that were very Canadian specific, that broke down what we needed to do here in Canada. So after doing all of this, and learning a lot about how to build wealth and how to, pay down my debt, which I'm doing now, I realized that if I am having this same problem, I can't find anything for myself. Can you imagine what other people are going through? Yeah. So I said, you know what, I'm gonna start my blog and educate people, specifically young professionals and also immigrants as well to Canada, so that they have that information. So that's really how that transition happened. I experienced it myself, and I also wanted to help people. The goal is to help as many people as possible. Yeah. When I look at my numbers, I always say, if I'm helping just one person or 5 people today, I know I've done my job. And that's been the focus, and that's how I started.
Wonderful. No, I'm listening to what you're saying, and I'm hearing, my own story in what you're saying, because yes, I didn't know anything about personal finance either. And I'm also an immigrant, right, from Jamaica. Yeah. And I'm just thinking to myself, like, I wish I knew, some of the things I know now, right? Yes. Definitely married to Basil, who is Canadian, and know much more about personal finances and, what he learned from the people around him, for sure. Mm-hmm. And, sharing that information with me. And, since now that we're married, we've gotten to the place where we are also trying to build personal wealth. Yes. And, learning from so many different organizations and people and books, like you're saying. But yeah, you're right. It's challenging. Most of the things that we've gotten actually are American. Yes. It's American finance rather than Canadian finance. Yes. So I think you're totally right, where there's a missing piece here in Canada, where people aren't as focused on building wealth in Canada. So there's not a lot of things documented for Canadians. Whereas in the US, building wealth is something that is a normal thing, right? So I think that you can find so much more information from an American standpoint than from a Canadian standpoint. So I think what you're doing is amazing. And there's so many clients as well that I see in my practice that are trying to think about what this means for them, where they're going in their life, what their purpose is. Yeah. And they're recognizing that going the normal route or the regular, go to a 9-to-5 job isn't going to cut it, or it's going to do anything. So needing to figure out other ways of, accessing money as well. And I think that, that whole diversifying and talking about stocks and bonds and talking about trade and is a big topic right now. Crypto is a huge topic now.
That's a big disruptor. Yes.
Right. Yeah. So it's quite interesting, having these discussions now that I'm in my 30s, whereas I think a lot of, teenagers now are having those conversations, and 20-year-olds are having those conversations. So I think definitely educating ourselves on these things are so important. So I'm glad to hear that you're doing it. And it came out of this need for you to build your own personal finance and then now share it with other people who might need the help.
Yeah. Yeah. And for me, I've always been very good at budgeting, but when after you budget, then what? So there's so much more to it. And even investing, that knowledge can, historically, usually the people who were investors were usually, men in suits. When you look at Wall Street, you see these men trading on the sales floor, and you always wonder, okay, only those people have that knowledge, or wealthy people? Now, what we want to do is to ensure that this information becomes easily accessible to everybody. Everybody can invest. It doesn't matter if you're working a 9-to-5 or if you're an entrepreneur. Everyone can do it. Even if you're a student, you can do it. And making that information accessible, and also giving people options to choose from. And that's what I try to do with my blog, and also with working with different clients and helping them to look at what their current situation is, where they want to go, and then how they get there. And there are many ways to do it, but you just need to be focused and be dedicated to get it done, and also to know what your overall vision and goal is. I think that's the biggest piece.
Yeah. So being intentional, it seems, about what it is that you want to do, and
Yes.
where you want to go, and then being able to plan it out and being diligent
Yes.
and getting the right information. So
That's
it
it.
sounds a little bit like motivational interviewing. And I'll share a little
Yes.
bit about what
Yes.
that is. And basically it's sort of this 5-step process where you're, first you're not even aware that you need to do something.
Yes.
Other people are like, you really need to start investing, or you
Yeah.
really need to start thinking about your finances, and you're like, I make enough money, I'm good to go.
Yeah.
Right. And that's
Yeah.
sort of like pre-contemplative, the first stage. And the
Right.
second stage is like contemplative, where you're like, you know what, they're right, I really should
Yes.
start to do this, but
Yeah.
it's sort of still an idea, it's just in
Yeah.
your consciousness, and you're like, I should do this,
Yeah.
but there's no steps to actually do anything.
Yes.
And then the third step is like the planning stage. And the planning stage is sort of where you're like, okay, maybe I should read a book or listen to a podcast, right? Educate myself, and then start to put things into place as to what I'm going to do, right? The fourth stage is action. So this is where you're like, you know what? I have a plan. I have all the education I need now in this moment, and this is what I'm going to do. And you start to enact your plan, to execute
Yes.
the plan. And then the last stage is maintenance. So it's sort of this idea where you're like, now that you've acted, how are you going to maintain, this flow and this idea that you've created, and action plan. And that motivational interviewing, sort of that it gives you that sense of, motivation, drive, and the ability to keep going. So when you were just talking about that, I think so many people are in different stages of
Yes.
what they're doing, and I feel like you're in that, action maintenance,
Yes.
between that, in the way that you're going about things. You're like, I did my research.
Yep.
Now it's time for me to act, and now I want to educate other people while I'm doing what I'm doing.
Yes, definitely. I love that framework. It really helps to break down how you go through different stages in your life and different things. And you've nailed it. Yes, it's definitely, I'm towards that end of the road where it's more about action and maintaining and also sharing that knowledge with other people and helping as many people as possible. Because this can be life changing.
Yeah.
So many people are living paycheck to paycheck. And the thing about it, because I'm now writing an entire series around how to stop living paycheck to paycheck and how to get out of that cycle. And in my research, I'm finding that many people are living paycheck to paycheck, one, and two, it doesn't matter what your income is. So you could be making $30,000 per year or $150,000. People are still living paycheck to paycheck. It doesn't matter if it's how much you're making. I think it's more focused on how you manage your money, how much you actually keep. So, what are the habits that you need to develop, and habits and the things that you need to do so that you're not living in a constant cycle? Because it can be very, I would say, it can impact your savings and your investments really badly and leave you in a place where you have nothing at all. So
Mhm.
the focus is on getting a plan in place and then working step by step to get out of that cycle. And if you are in a cycle for different reasons, we are in a pandemic. Many people have lost their jobs. At the same time, we have to work within what we can do and what's in your sphere of control, and not to shame anybody, or you have to lead with compassion. And the thing about money is, you can't blame yourself if you weren't doing it the right things beforehand. You can't really blame yourself. You have to
Mhm.
learn from your mistakes and move on, and also have a plan for the future. And when you find new knowledge, you say, first of all, I didn't know this, so now I know it. What do I do with it? Right.
Yeah.
And that's the focus that I try to do in my practice, and also educate people around that it's okay if you are living paycheck to paycheck. This is not for you to feel bad. It's okay. Now, what do we do about it? Let's work
Yes.
together to get you a solid plan that can help you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So it's sort of that idea of identifying where you are and being
exactly.
okay with where you are now. And then
Exactly.
that from that spot, how can you then start to enact something, or a
Yes.
plan, or put something in place?
Yep.
So, it's not about shaming or guilting
No.
anybody based on what you're saying. It's sort of this idea of education helps you to be aware of where you are, and
Yes.
then helps you to identify where you want to go. I like that.
Exactly.
I like that a lot.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right. So, I'm thinking about on the steps where I am.
Okay.
And I think that I'm definitely thinking I'm in the planning stages,
Okay.
planning between planning
Good
and
place to
acting,
be. Yeah.
right? And I'm thinking about sort of, we talked about passive income. I was thinking about passive income while you were
Yeah.
talking, and the idea that there are so many things that you can do to gain income or for income to be working for you,
Yeah.
outside of just investing, right? So I
Yeah.
know a lot of people, that I know do YouTube channels like I'm doing now.
Yeah.
People have podcasts and people do blogs like you're doing,
Mhm.
right? And I know a lot of people will also like have like a e-commerce,
Yes.
shop, right? So there's so many different ways too that you can do passive income where money is just coming in for you, without you having to necessarily work, right?
Yeah.
And I think that that's a part of what you're talking about, that idea of thinking about, okay, what are some of the things that you can do that can help you to get to the place that you can be on the beach and you're still making money.
Yes. 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 Definitely. I would say, and the first thing I want to say is I like the steps that you have, and I almost feel like depending on what's happening in your life, you may actually vacillate between some of these steps. So sometimes you're in the action phase, but you're also planning and learning. So I know for me, because crypto moves so fast,
Yeah.
I am between both of those stages because it's a constant, every day it changes.
Mhm.
And when you see like the Federal Reserve in the US, they're trying to still figure out how to regulate cryptocurrency, for example. There's so much more that we have to learn. So
Mhm.
I find that you may sometimes end up going back and forth, depending on what's happening in the industry, what's happening in the world. You may always have to go back and rebalance your portfolio or your profile or what you're working on. But to the second point that you were making about the passive income,
Mhm.
definitely, I think that's one of the many ways in which you can build wealth. I have a quick story around that.
Sure.
This is years ago. I think I
Mhm.
was in college. I think it was. It's a random story, but it has a meaning.
Okay.
I was at a restaurant having lunch at a Chinese restaurant having delicious Chinese food. And this is in Jamaica.
Mhm.
And a gentleman came and ordered food, and he sat right next to me, and we started talking. And I was in my uniform. So back home in Jamaica, we wear school uniforms.
Mhm.
And he saw that I was going to, at the time, I'm from Montego Bay. We have community colleges. So that's how you matriculate to go to university. So I was at a community college at that time, at Montego Bay Community College, and was in my uniform. And he started asking me about school, what I want to do, where I'm going next. I was telling him about my plans, and we were talking just randomly about life and education and my future. I don't know. He was a very nice man. And
Mhm.
then he said to me, okay, I know you're going to university soon and everything, but let me tell you this. If you want to build wealth, you can't expect to do it with just one income.
Mhm.
And then he left. And I never forgot that. Never. And I'm saying that to say that your 9 to 5 is important. Some people have their jobs, they're in good jobs. Your 9 to 5 is important. It provides stability and health insurance and all of that. And that's okay. Not everyone will be an entrepreneur. However, you need to know, how are you going to be building wealth for the future? So your retirement, if you have children, university tuition, if you're going to pay for it,
Yeah.
um, buying a home. And even if you have a home, what is the plan for that? You have equity in your home. Are you going to stay there when you're in retirement? Those are the kinds of things that you have to think about. And I think having multiple streams of income really helps with that. In one way, investing is really good. You do have that passive income coming in. Depending on what part of investing or asset class you're using, you can have dividend payouts coming in. That's one way in which you can have money coming in. If you're in an index fund, which typically does very well and very stable, you have that money coming in and it's growing. But also, if you're up to it, I would say a side hustle is always really good. What I love about side hustles, I mean, I have one myself,
Mhm.
is you get to learn new skills.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that people are doing YouTube, they have blogs, they have e-commerce stores or whatever. When you do that, you're bringing in money and you're also learning new skills for the future and you're keeping current.
Yeah.
So that's one way in which you're not only building wealth, but you're also securing your future. If anything happens at the 9 to 5, you may end up going full time with your e-commerce store, right? And of course, we know that e-commerce is the future. So
Yeah.
that's a good place to be. And knowing how to navigate a YouTube channel, how to grow a channel successfully, those are excellent skills that you can build. And you can also, it can provide a solid foundation for your future. And when you have this side hustle money coming in, you also have to know how to invest that money, because you can have multiple, passive income and multiple streams of income coming in. But then what do you do with that money? Do you go and buy a new dress every time? Yeah, you have to have a plan for that. So if I have my income coming in on my side hustle over here and my side hustle over there, okay, I know for that side hustle, that money is paying off my student loan. That money is to pay towards my kids' college tuition. That other money is to pay for another house. Or I'm interested in looking into real estate investing. That's going to pay towards my second or third home that I'm looking at buying, so I can have that rental income coming in. So having a plan also for those different streams of income is very important as well. But it's a good way to build wealth.
Yes, yes. No, I really like the way that you put that, where you connect it all together in the sense that yes, you have these multiple streams of income, right? And I
Yeah.
love that story because, even like I know we're not speaking as Christians here, but I am a Christian and I know that the Bible
Same.
talks about, this idea of having the multiple streams of income, right?
Yes.
And being wise with your money and
Yes.
all of that.
Yes.
So I think that it's wise words to think about different ways that you can make money for sure. But then it's sort of that idea of what are you going to do with the
Yes.
multiple streams and how is it going to work for you, right, in
Exactly.
the end. And I think that that's the planning that you were talking about earlier.
Yes, definitely. And I'm glad you mentioned the whole the piece with the Bible. Because I also am a Christian, I mean, like you. And I when I read the Bible, there are many money mindset myths that are out there, like money is the root of all evil. That's not true, and that's not what the Bible says. It's the love of money. But what I also try to say as well, and then even in the blog, I say this, that even though we want to be financially prudent individuals and we want to save and we want to have money, also don't become a slave to it.
Yeah.
Because I was reading the story last week when the rich young ruler came to Jesus, and he said he's been keeping the commandments and he's been living a good life. And then Jesus says to him, sell all that you have and give it to the poor and follow me. The young man could not do it.
Yeah.
And when the disciples heard that, they marveled to themselves. And then Jesus made a comment about the camel and the needle and all of that. And the disciples said to Jesus, then who can enter the kingdom? And Jesus said, well, all things are possible with God. That's all he said.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the crux of that story is that the young man was rich. And I think rich people will definitely go to heaven. I mean, I think that. But at the same time, who do you trust? And this is maybe specifically for Christians, though.
Yeah.
Who do you trust? Do you trust your money? Or do you trust God?
Mm-hmm.
And I think as Christians, that's one of the things that we have to navigate. We're not putting our trust in all our side hustles and all our different streams of income. We're putting our trust in God, who then enlightens us to be prudent with our money so that we can give back.
Yes.
But the trust, who do you trust? In that young man's case, he trusted the money more than God. We don't know what happened to him, but we just always, that's a fine line that I'm aware of. And I say, Lord, if I'm focusing more on money, I want to focus on you, and then let your will be done.
Yes.
So just wanted to put that in there.
Yes, no, it's a great way to,
Yeah.
to sort of talk about that idea of, as you say, money becoming an idol or money becoming a slave.
Yes.
Because, I can see how that could become destructive in the sense of you're trading or investing and, how the stock market or the trades
Yeah.
can be fickle, right? And the
Yes.
risk can
Yes.
sometimes be high. And if
Yep.
you're so invested in the money itself, if you were to lose a lot, I could see how somebody could be really devastated, right? If their faith is in the money. But if they're really thinking about a bigger purpose and, they have a higher being that they have
Yes.
faith in and trust in, then that risk is something that they can mitigate and be okay with, because it's not
Yes.
necessarily about the
Yep.
money. It's about the faith that you have in God, indicating that he is going to prosper you, right?
Exactly.
And that's his the ideal is for him to allow you to live, a healthy life.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think when you look at history, when we had the Great Depression, so many wealthy people committed suicide.
Yeah.
Many, many, many wealthy people. And I mean, the Great Depression was really bad. But we eventually got out of it, right? With FDR, President Roosevelt and his policies. But all the trust and the faith and everything was in money. So when you lose all of that, then it's like you have no reason for living. And you being here, you're valuable, and you're here for a reason, and you're here for a purpose. And if you lose the money, so what? I know it's hard,
Mm-hmm.
but you're here for a purpose and you still have life.
Yes.
So having that mindset,
Mm-hmm.
that
Yeah. I was
you
gonna
still have life.
say,
Yeah.
sorry, I cut
Oh,
you there,
sorry. Go on. No,
but
go ahead.
I was also gonna say that, if you were able to make all that money, you still have the knowledge and the
Yes.
skills, right? You can make the money
Exactly.
again.
Yes.
So it's
Exactly.
sort of, if you put your
Exactly.
faith in God and you put your
Yeah.
faith in a higher power and reason for being here and that purpose,
Yeah.
then you recognize that the money is just money. It's just a tool. It's a thing. And
Yes.
if you can acquire it, and if you can lose it, it means you can also reacquire it, and you can also lose it again. So it's sort of that idea of recognizing the ebbs and flows of it. And
Yeah.
if you're in acceptance of that, then that's something that, I think we can be free of that burden and needing to hold on to it.
Yes. And it goes back to when talking about this, I'm just remembering why I named my blog and my entire business. I call it Abundance of Joe, which is of course Joe for me, but the abundance part that came from reading, John 10 verse 10. So I've been reading the Gospels a lot. I read the Gospels every morning since the 2020, and it's been mind blowing. And I remember when I read that Jesus talked about being the good shepherd and helping us and being the true vine and all of that. And then he says, the thief, that it comes to kill, steal, and destroy, but I come so that you may have life and have it more abundantly. And from that, abundance just took a different kind of meaning for me.
Yeah.
It's not only about money, but it's about having a life that is wealthy in terms of relationships and good friends and community and a healthy mindset around, I matter, I'm here for a purpose.
Yeah.
And it's not just about money, but it's just being here and enjoying life. That's really what, I'm trying to tell people. And money is one way to do that, but it's not the only way. But having a solid foundation where that is concerned can help you to do that as well. So that's how that name came about. And it was just thinking about it. And it said to me, when you said what you said just now, it jogged my memory as to why the whole piece of abundance, so it comes up as something that most people want to live an abundant life, but they probably don't know how or what it means.
Well, thank you so much for sharing, with us today, Jodi. If there is maybe, one or two tips that you can share with, those listening who are thinking about personal finances and wanting to build wealth, what would you say to them?
Okay. So firstly, I would say you need to know the basics. So, everybody talks about investing. You need to invest. But how are you going to invest if you don't even have a budget? So having that solid foundation is good. And the foundation is a couple of things. First thing you need to do is to track your expenses, sorry. You need to track your expenses. You need to track your money, see what's coming in. So your income, or if you have multiple streams of income. And then you also need to know what your expenditures are. You have the usual fixed expenses, your rent or your mortgage or if you have your utilities that you're paying for, you have those ones, and then you have to look at those expenses that change from month to month, and then develop a budget around that. Now, budgets can be a little bit restrictive. Some people don't like them. My budget that I have personally, and what I try to proselytize on my blog, is more around creating a budget so you know where your money is going, and then you can have your fun money. So once you know when you do that budget and you look at your income versus your expenses, if you have a negative number there, then that means that something needs to happen. You either need to make more income, maybe get another job or start a side hustle or something, or you need to reduce your expenses. The thing about that, though, you can only cut your expenses for so long. After a while, you probably need to get more income. So that's the basic, I would say. Understand where your money is going right now. Once you do that and you do that same exercise and that positive number is coming up, then you start to look at ways you need to build wealth. So saving money is one way. So I am a key advocate of automating your savings. I've done it for years, and I think it's the number one way in which you can really save money and not interfere with the whole process. Once you set it, you forget it, and you open a basic savings, high interest savings account, and then you allocate a particular amount to go to that account, maybe monthly or bi-weekly. Maybe when you get paid, you do the same. As you get paid, $200 goes to that account. Automate it, because that's when you start to build that habit. And then after you start automating your savings, you can look at other ways now in which you can build wealth. You can start investing. Open I would say an investment account. There are different brokerages that you can use. Wealthsimple is quite popular here in Canada. Another good one is Questrade. But with investing, I would say do your research. There are different ways in which you can invest. I'm a big fan of index funds. So we can look at those kinds of options. If you're into day trading, I would say make sure you know your threshold for risk and understand your risk profile. If you're risky, know how much you're willing to lose, because it is a very risky venture. But I always say to people, if you have serious loans or serious debt, I want to help you to start saving, start investing. I believe that you can have debt and invest at the same time, because when you're investing, you're tapping into that compound interest where the money builds as you put more money and make more money. That money continues to grow. But at the same time, you need to pay down debt and prioritize that. So focus on paying that debt down so that you can have more money to put towards assets. And then open an investing account and do your research, start investing, and then pay down debt. And then when you have enough money, you can look at other things that you can do. The side hustles that we talked about is one. And then real estate investing is another one. That's a great way also to build wealth. But there are many options available. I would say get the basics, just to sum up everything, get the basics on track, ensure that you have the right budgeting system in place that works for you, and then save money automatically, pay down debt if you have a lot of debt, especially pay that down, and then focus on building wealth in different avenues. So that's pretty much what I can sum up. If you need more information, you can check out my blog, and there are lots of books that I recommend as well that can help.
Wonderful. No, that is, such a good information in a short period of time.
Like a lot.
I really appreciate you sharing it, but I think it's amazing, right? I almost hear a bit of a formula in what you're saying, but I think it would be beneficial for everybody listening to just go check out the blog. I'm sure you're gonna get a lot of information there, right? And you can replay this interview as many times as you want and write down some information too.
Yes.
That could be helpful as well. But I really think that the tips you shared there at the end is really great. It's really identify what's going on with your money.
Yes.
What's coming in, what's going out. Do I have overflow, and what am I going to do with the overflow when I get it, right? And then it's sort of this idea of paying down your debts and creating a savings plan, right?
Yes.
And the savings plan is then what you're going to use to do all these other things that you're thinking about doing.
Yeah.
And I think that that's a great way of thinking about it, right?
Yeah.
It gives you the
Sure.
opportunity to, identify how. So that plan that you talked about,
Yeah.
right? It gives you the opportunity to then think about what that's going to look like.
Yeah.
And I think that that's a great way of looking at it, especially for, our emerging adults who are coming up,
Yes.
who are just like, I don't know what to do. I don't know where to start. Well, budget
I
is the
know.
first way. The first
Yeah.
step is the budget, right?
First step. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And after you do all of that, the next piece, when you're saving and you're doing, your side hustles and everything, the next piece I would say is focus on building assets. Building assets is the number one thing that I think most of us should be doing, because
Yeah.
you need assets, and assets can be in different ways. We have different asset classes, but focus on that. You want to get rid of the liabilities as much as you can, and some liabilities, once you're out of all the debt and everything, now you can spend some time building assets. I mean, owning a home, for example, is a great way to build assets. I mean, the equity that you have in your home can really do so much for you.
Yeah.
So that would be the number one thing I would say. After you have the basics down, focus on building assets.
Yes, no, I think that's a good idea. Like, I know Elon Musk is one of the persons who really believe in the
Yes.
idea of building assets, right? Like, he
Yes.
says he's cash poor, in the sense that all his money is in real estate businesses,
Yes.
and investing, right?
Yes.
So he doesn't have any liquid cash to give around, because everything is
Yeah.
in equity and all that stuff.
That's right.
So I think it's a smart way, if you're Elon Musk, obviously. But to
Yeah.
get to that point, when you get to the point where you don't have debt anymore and you can, invest your money in a solid thing, then I think that that's an amazing way of doing it, for sure.
Yes. 100%. Yeah.
Okay.
Definitely.
All right. So I have
Yeah.
one last question for you.
Okay.
And this is, how can people access your blog? Like, how can people get more
Sure.
information about what you're talking about? Because I even want to go check out the blog now, because I'm just like, I'm in that planning action stage. So I need to know
Yes.
all the things. So yeah, where
Okay.
can people go to find your blog?
Awesome. So the blog is Abundance of Joe. So abundance, the word abundance, OF, and Joe, me, Joe. So it's abundanceofjoe.com, or you can Google Abundance of Joe, I'll come up. And when you go on the blog, I have tips on saving money, making money, and also your money mindset. I think that's very important. You need to understand what you think about money and how you think about money, and how to alleviate all the problems that you have in your head about money, so that you can focus on growing wealth. So those are the three areas that I cover. And then after that, I'm also on YouTube, a very tiny YouTube channel. So please subscribe. Very tiny. That was a Q4 last year, Q4 plan that I had, started in December. So extremely small. But I also, when I do my blog posts, I also talk about the exact same thing in a YouTube video, so that some people are very good at digesting videos quicker than reading. So that's one way in which you can access my blog, my YouTube channel. The name is the same as the blog, Abundance of Joe. And then I'm also on Instagram. I drop some good tips over there every now and then. I also have fun doing reels, so you can check that out. I'm on Facebook, also on Twitter, and I'm also on Pinterest. So there's lots of goodies over on Pinterest as well. And it's the same name, very consistent, Abundance of Joe. So you can
Wonderful.
check
All
me out.
right. So we are
Yeah.
going to put Jodi's contact details in the
Oh, thank
description
you.
box below, so you can go and check her out on all these different platforms. So it's so easy. Abundance of Joe. Like, just
That's
go
it.
put that into Google and you'll
Yeah,
probably find all the different
everything.
formats coming up. So no, we're so excited and happy to have had this conversation with you, Jodi.
Thank you for having
I
me.
feel like I'm leaving with abundance of information.
Yay! That's what I want to hear. Yes.
Yes. All
And
right.
I just quickly just want to say I also provide coaching services. So if you want help with building that budget and building out a financial plan, I also do that as well. Forgot to mention
Perfect.
that. Yes.
Yes, no, wonderful.
Yeah.
Consulting is such a good, good field too. So if you want that financial coaching and you're like, I read all this information, but I really think somebody else would be able to help me with this. Sounds like Jody is your person. All right. Okay. So thank you so much for
Thank
being with
you.
us today. Really
Thank
appreciate
you.
it. Until next time, take care.
Yes. Thank you. Bye bye.